has attended our previous sessions. I hope this has been fun for you guys for learning as much as it has for us hosting it and being with you guys this summer. It's been a really fun program, so it's bittersweet to come to an end, but I do encourage you on that survey and stuff. If you guys have topics for next year, we plan to build on this program and we invite you back and any of your friends. So tonight I'm going to be talking about fall garden wrap-up, and with that I'm not going to just focus on garden. We're going to talk about landscape as well. I like to be interactive. If you have questions as we go, don't hesitate, okay? All right, we're in August. First day of back to school. Some of us, it's bittersweet. How many of you guys are like, thank God, summer has been long? Yeah, I see you guys. School has started, and so with August, this is what I think about. I think about we are in the full swing of harvest, with Sue talking about preservation. I know plenty of gardeners who are out there. They're preserving, they're canning, they're making jams and jellies. And we are just in full swing, so it's great to know that. But tonight's kind of presentation is about how we wrap up this growing season and work our way into the next season. So dreaded frost is going to become a knockin' pretty soon here. I actually do a TV show here too locally with one of our horticulturalists out of NDSU, and we talked about old Jack Frost today. And where we're at, we're probably about a 50% probability to seeing our first frost come about September 16th. Okay, yeah, it's coming. We're at more of an 80% for beginning of October and a really small percentage for the beginning of September. So this graphic, hopefully you guys got a handout and you can see it a little bit better, but this is just the countdown to frost, so I want you guys to know how many days from pollination to harvest that you guys have left here. And it's like, again, I know it's hard to see, but we're kind of right in this area, so we got really about a month left to go. So beans, from the day that they are pollinated till you can actually harvest, is going to take about 7 to 18 days. Zucchini, 3 to 4. How many are over zucchini this time of year? Yeah. Right, you got to give it away. You know, we're actually having a birthday party this weekend. I thought it'd be perfect party favors, right? Take a zucchini home. We have peppers. Those are probably not going to make it at this point if you are just starting to see those blossoms. I know some people struggled with peppers here in the last couple weeks as blossoms started. With those high temperatures, we just really had a hard time seeing good pollination on them. And I think, too, peppers are a little bit behind unless you were in the garden earlier. Tomatoes, 45 to 60. Again, it's going to be pretty slim pickings if you were just seeing blossoms. But if you have actual tomatoes on your plant, hopefully we don't hit that early chance of September frost. And then melons. I tell people melons are already, especially watermelon, a struggle to grow here in North Dakota. So hopefully you got some baby watermelons on the vine to go. And lastly, one of our other popular one, cucumbers. If you have slicing cucumbers, those are going to take about 15 to 18 days, or if you have pickling, 4 to 5. So plenty of time for pickling cucumbers yet. The great thing is we do have a few select crops that we can harvest off the vine. So if there is frost that's going to be early predicted, go ahead, take your tomatoes, take your squash, take your pumpkins. If they have any slight blush on them of color, you can get them completely to full color off the vine, and you can harvest them that way. All right, so we're getting to the point too that some people are starting to clean out the gardens. I will tell you, I pulled all my bean plants the other day. I was partially sick of picking them, and I have plenty of them, but so one thing to consider is if you do have really healthy plant debris, you're not known of any insects or disease within your garden, rather than just tossing that out, if you don't compost, maybe it's something to think about doing. So you can compost those, put those back into the garden, put them back into the soil, bring some nutrients for next year. But we want to make sure to bag up any diseased materials. So anybody know if you are cleaning out the garden, what time of the day is the best time to do that? No? Anytime? When you have free time, when you can get out there, right? If you have this time and everything, you're going to want to go out on a dry, sunny day in the late morning or afternoon. Again, it's going to just kind of help lessening that chance of spreading any disease that you may have in your garden and to kind of keep it off from next year coming back. All right, I know no-till is really becoming popular around here, and so I wanted to include what should you do with a no-till garden? How do you clean that up? So really with that, we don't want to take our plants out. Rather just cut them to the soil line, but leave those roots intact, okay? That is going to help with your soil structure and again, just kind of improving that soil. You do want to remove any top material just because it's going to reduce any insect or disease. Again, insects like to harbor that. And then cover cropping. Jaden's going to talk about that after. You guys all got a favor of cover cropping to go home, so it's something to try after you're ready to put your garden to bed. With no-till, we always would recommend that at all times the garden should have mulch crops, a cover crop, or even a layer of mulch on top of that garden. So this is the perfect time too, as we wrap up the garden season, to really think about how your gardens did. How many of you guys feel like you were pretty successful this year? Everybody's hand should be up compared to last year, right? That was tough. These are kind of some of the questions I suggest, especially this is Gardening 101. I know a lot of you guys are well-seasoned gardeners, probably have more knowledge than I do, but our beginner gardeners should always ask themselves, you know, what varieties did I like better? What diseases did I have? Maybe you don't know that you had a disease. What kind of insects? Grasshoppers? Yeah, everybody. How about flea beetles? Terrible, terrible, terrible. I think those are probably the two most prevalent that I have seen in the last month here. Also, I've had some gardeners report the blister beetles as well. Anybody blister beetles that they know of in their garden? No? You want to be careful with them if you have them in your garden. What do you like about the layout of your garden? What needs to be changed as far as your layout? I always like to tell people again, as a beginner gardener, if you were here with us in our February and May session, I talked about biting off more than you can chew. As a new gardener, or especially with young kids, you don't want to take on too much. I guess I jumped the gun on that one. Okay, the other thing we don't want to forget about is our tools, okay? So any of our garden shovels or spades or trowels, we want to make sure that we clean and disinfect them. If you guys did have disease and you are using pruners to clean up in there, make sure that you are cleaning them between your cuts. You don't want to spread the disease from one plant to another. Make sure to oil any moving parts. And then, of course, always sharpen your blades too. Like as we finish up with mowing, we want to make sure that we're putting our lawnmowers ready for use come next spring. If you're growing perennials, there's no need to clear cut a perennial garden after the first freeze. Actually leaving that plant material intact and removing it in early spring is actually going to provide food and protection for pollinators, wildlife, and birds. I know I just said remove your plant garden, but it just depends on what your goals are. You know, we just learned this year monarchs are on the endangered list, so sometimes we want to make sure that we actually provide that for our pollinators come in the spring. And then if you did have an insect or disease, we should remove those perennials. The great thing that I like about perennials too, especially our grasses, ornamental, they're going to help provide like that winter interest. How many of you guys get the winter blues? It's a long winter sometimes up here. Mulch. Adding a blanket of mulch can be really beneficial for the plants, not only protecting them, it'll help in the springtime too with that soil temperatures. And then the other thing that's beneficial for is with frost heaving. And so many of us probably haven't heard of that term, but it is the freeze-thaw cycle of the upper layer of soil that actually can work your plant roots and the crown out of the soil. So mulching will help protect them from doing that. All right, planting bulbs. We're just about ready to start planting bulbs here. So we want to make sure we are planting hardy bulbs, okay? What are some of our hardy bulbs here in North Dakota? Just shout them out. Tulips. Daffodils. I didn't hear that one. Maybe? That's okay. We want to make sure that when you are planting them, let's follow the label. In general, those bulbs need to be planted about 2 to 3 times the diameter that they are. We want to make sure that the pointed side is up. A lot of people make that mistake. They put that pointed side down. You want to cover with half the soil to start and then soak that really thoroughly. Finish covering that remaining soil and then water and cover with mulch again. Again, this is going to help them come up next spring and you'll be successful with them. So like I said, we can't just focus on the garden this time of year. September is the best month for lawn care. How many of you guys knew that? Some of us know. How many of you guys think spring is the best time for lawn care? All right, I'm here to give you some pointers on that. Why would you think that September would be a good month for lawn care? Anybody? Cooler? That is part of it, yeah. Our soil temperatures are warm. All of our plants are starting to prepare to go dormant, even including the weeds. So like right now, you could be sowing seed and you're gonna get good germination really quickly because we have those cool season grasses. So you can sow seed until about mid-September to get it established for next year. We wanna fertilize our lawn right around Labor Day. Again, like I said, as plants prepare to go dormant, they know that winter's coming. They know that jackgrass is around the corner. They're not trying to grow. They are trying to prepare to go dormant. So they actually absorb that fertilizer a lot better. This time of year, you want to put on like a winterized fertilizer. So that's going to be something that's really high in nitrogen. Probably have no phosphorus, but then again, have some level of potassium to go in for the winter. And then lastly, spray for weeds. This is the best time of year to spray for weeds. If you want to have your most effective kill, again, we're targeting right now into that month of September. Those weeds are going to take that herbicide down into their root system. You're going to get a more effective kill. If you have an annual weeds, do you need to worry so much? Some of us strive for that pristine lawn. And so as far as an herbicide, really you should be pulling them out, but yes, you're going to want to try to maintain them so we're not getting seeds for next year. And then you want to mow your lawn once it has actually stopped growing. So in general, we would tell you to mow your lawn at that 3.5 inches, 4 inches of height. When we go into winter, let's cut it down around that 2.5 inches, okay? Again, we don't want to harbor any unwanted insects or any voles. Voles are a very big problem up here in North Dakota. All right, I told you guys we're going to talk a little bit about trees here too. So planting trees. The roots of our trees need adequate time to become established from winter. In general, we would say that's about 4 weeks. Okay, so when do we need to do that? Again, I apologize if this is hard to see. Hopefully your handout's doing a really good job. Here we are in Burleigh County. You got till about October 1st. You don't want to be planting anything after October 1st. Can you be successful after October 1st? Yeah, if the weather cooperates. But you also run the chances of being successful with that tree come next year. So how do we go ahead and plant those? We want to make sure that our root collar is slightly above the soil. That's probably the biggest problem in North Dakota, is that our trees are planted too deep. And so when I go and I'm dealing with tree problems and stuff, I always ask people if they're going to send in photos or I'm talking to them on the phone. What does your trunk look like going at the line of the soil? Does it look like a bell-bottom pant leg, or does it look like a telephone pole going into the ground? You want to see that root flare. When we see them get planted too deep, you end up with what is called tree girdling. So as a tree matures, those roots, rather than spreading out, actually start to circle the tree and will choke the tree out and cause it to die. So right there is just a good photo for you guys to see that root collar right at the slightly above that. As far as watering, we would recommend to water about 10 gallons per week. This is kind of a general rule of thumb per inch of diameter on that trunk. Every few days you should be doing it as you start to get it established in those first 2 weeks, and then you can start backing off as we get into winter. And right now, like if you have established trees, go ahead and water up until freeze up. Usually in the month of August, we tell you to slightly stress your trees because it helps them harden off properly, but now you can start watering them again come September till freeze up. Okay, as far as staking, you guys think we should stake our trees? No? Aren't we known as the Windy State? Yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on your property and everything if you got protection from the wind. But if you know you're in a windy area, go ahead and stake that tree. When you are staking that tree, make sure that the stakes aren't tight. You need to have some wiggle room so that tree can actually grow and adjust and adapt to that environment. And then mulching. How many of you guys mulch around your trees? A couple of us. I see a couple hands go up. We do encourage mulching. I would say the biggest attacker of trees are ourselves with weed whackers and lawn mowers. So how do you go ahead and mulch a brand new tree or any tree that you're going to put mulch around? I tell people the rule of 3, okay? 3 inches away from the trunk, 3 inches deep, go 3 feet wide. And some general tips here coming into fall. Let's enjoy this fall color that's coming. We, like I said, water your trees weekly up until freeze up. You want to rake up any leaves and destroy them if, again, they have disease. Otherwise, you can take those healthy leaves and mulch them into like your garden. Prune out any dead wood. You can prune out any dead wood throughout the year, okay? If it's diseased or dead, prune it out. Otherwise, you want to prune out any living branches during that dormant season. So now is not a good time if you're going to give your tree a haircut. Let's wait till later in the fall, around November. A lot of people like to do it early spring, around March. And wrap our trees. I know a lot of people get confused about wrapping our trees. They think that that's something you do as soon as you plant it in the spring. Wrapping actually protects your tree from heating up. So in the winter, another problem that I see, especially with some of our trees that have tender bark, like maples, we get sun scalding. And so in the winter, what happens is, even though it's cold out temperature-wise, if we have a full sun, that sun is going to go ahead and activate the plant cells during the day. And so they get moving and everything. Nighttime comes, those temperatures drop. It actually causes it to burst, and you'll see a crack on the bottom of your trunk. Usually on the south side, just because that's where we get the most sun throughout the day, and that can be troublesome for your tree as well. Like I said, we have a long winter, and so we want to go ahead and cure those winter blues by adding some greenery throughout the season. So if you have gardening friends, let's give them a Christmas cactus. Let's try succulents. I know succulents are getting really very popular. I always tell people, if you don't have a green thumb, you can be successful with succulents. They take a lot of abuse. They're kind of a foolproof one. And another trend that I've seen a lot of people get into is growing herbs. And that is something you can do out in your garden. You can do it inside your house as well. So with that, I just thank you guys. Do you have any questions for me on cleaning up your garden or your landscape going into winter?
For wrapping for protection against, I've had problems with snow and voles underneath.
Yep.
What do you recommend for that?
Okay, so his question was wrapping the trees. He's had issues with like the snow coming up and then voles, right?
Under the snow.
Going under the snow, yep. So what kind of wraps do you already use? Oh, you haven't been, okay. So you should go out and get one of those white plastic corrugated wraps. Don't do black. Black is going to encourage heat, where white will reflect that heat off. And then sometimes I know people have issues with like deer or rabbits too going up. Fencing is going to be your best option for that. Any other? Yes?
What do you recommend when you say to clean and disinfect your tools at the end of the season? Using what?
Yeah, her question was, what would be recommended for disinfecting your tools at the end of the season? Like an alcohol solution, even a bleach solution. Yep, you'll do like a bleach, so many parts bleach to water and stuff. There's a lot of resources on if you go with that, or even like I've even heard people using like hydrogen peroxide mix as well. Yes?
If you have a tree with frost cracking, about how much, let's say, bark can you lose on it before you know it's going to die?
In that case, so her question was, if you have a tree that has had sun scald or like a frost crack, she said, how much bark can you lose? It really depends on how deep it goes and the age of the tree. I always tell people, like, just because you have a crack doesn't mean you're gonna necessarily see dieback. And those cracks, just like if we would get a cut, trees naturally heal themselves and stuff. So like there's a tree at one of the rest stops along I-94 that had this, they actually cut a branch off and they painted a smiley face on there. It's been about 10 years now and you don't even see the smiley face. Like it has grown over and healed itself. So let your tree kind of guide you. If you actually see damage, like I said, you would see like dieback if it has went into that wood tissue that's cut off flow of the nutrients and water to parts of those trees. Okay? Any other questions? Not that, I mean, as long as they're zoned for us. Yeah, as long as they're zoned for us. You can talk to Chad. He can give you specific recommendations on that. But if they're zoned here, no reason you can't get a tree planted if you get on it. Like I said, don't go later than October 1st. Not that you can't chance it, but try to aim before October 1st. Any other questions? Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to Jaden, and I'll let him talk to you guys about cover cropping.